Now I'm here with Russia's ambassador to Indonesia, Her Excellency Lyudmila Vorobieva. Good morning, Your Excellency. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining me to discuss the Indonesia's G20 presidency. And thank you for allowing us to interview you amid your busy schedule.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Okay, let's start with a question on the state of bilateral relations of Russia and Indonesia, and also what areas of cooperation that you've been emphasizing on since you came here in 2018.
Well, in Russia, we see Indonesia as our good partner and friend, and our key partner in not only among ASEAN countries, but in the Asia Pacific as a whole. And of course, it is because, first of all, we enjoy traditional relations with Indonesia that started in the 60s during the presidency of Sukarno. He visited our country 4 times.
Right.
And
one of them was on his birthday.
On his birthday, exactly, also, and that's when the song Rayuan Pulau Kelapa became extremely popular in Russia. It was translated into Russian, and yes, because before President Sukarno came the first time, there was a documentary movie made on Indonesia and Russia, and the soundtrack for this movie was Rayuan Pulau Kelapa. It was translated into Russian, and all people in Russia basically knew this song.
Oh.
My parents, they know this song in Russian.
And in Russia, it's called
Indonesia, My Love. So we enjoyed very good relations, and also in Jakarta you can see symbols of this friendship, the Gelora Bung Karno, also the Rumah Sakit Persahabatan, Tugu Tani, Krakatau Steel, actually. In Surabaya there is a monument to a Russian submarine. So there's a lot of things that we created together. And I think this tradition is a very good basis for our bilateral relations, which have been developing very well in the last 3 decades, and especially after President Megawati Sukarnoputri visited Russia in 2003 and met with President Putin. If you look at our political dialogue, it's very active, actually. Last year, our Minister of Foreign Affairs visited Jakarta in July. He met with President Joko Widodo. Of course, he had talks with Ibu Retno Marsudi. Also, last year, we had the visit by our Secretary of Security Council of the Russian Federation to discuss security issues, and there was a very good also talks with his counterpart, Bapak Mahfud, the minister coordinator. Yeah. This year already, our minister, Sergei Lavrov, met with Ibu Retno in China, in Tunsi, at the margins of event dedicated to the situation in Afghanistan. Right. So we are in constant contact. Our presidents actually also met during last year's, at least a couple of times. President Joko Widodo visited Russia in 2016 to attend the Russia-ASEAN summit, and he also had bilateral meeting with President Putin. I was there actually.
Okay.
At the time I was working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was a very, very, very substantive and very good meeting. Also, they met in Singapore in 2018 for the Russia-ASEAN summit as well. And they had a telephone conversation 2 years ago. They discussed the ways to fight COVID-19. Right. So we have very good interaction between the 2 parliaments. Yeah. There have been exchange of visits. Actually, your delegation from the parliament were observers at the election of our lower chamber of our parliament, which is called the State Duma. and the contacts have been going on. And we hope for more. Of course, many things were halted by the COVID-19 pandemic. 2 years ago, we were celebrating the 70th anniversary of bilateral relations, and we had a very, comprehensive program of celebration. Unfortunately, we managed just to do actually a very nice exhibition at the National Gallery. There were some Russian artists who exhibited their paintings showing Indonesia. So it was Indonesia through the eyes of Russian artists, and also some archives photo from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia. And of course the highlight of this program should have been the visit of our president to Indonesia, but unfortunately you know what happened, and because of the COVID the visit was postponed, but hopefully our president may come to the G20 summit in November in Bali. So if you look at our trade and economic cooperation, it has been developing very well, and the trend is very positive. Last year we've seen an increase of our trade by 40%.
40%.
Yeah, it's very considerable. In January alone, 60%.
And mainly in which sector is that?
Yeah, you have a surplus in trade with Russia. We buy a lot of palm oil from you, and the numbers have been increasing. We don't have any restrictions regarding trade in this very important item. Also, we supplied fertilizers, we supplied cellulose products, we imported shoes and furniture from Indonesia, tropical fruit. Right. Indonesia imported wheat from Russia. So our trade is on the raise. Investment, of course, and it has reached $3 billion by the way, last year. Of course, it's not enough. If we look at our combined population of around 400 million, we can do more. And our presidents have set the target to reach the level of 5 billion. But if this trend continues, despite all the disruption in the global economy, we can reach this target. Investment, we have some joint investment programs and projects here. The biggest one, maybe you know, is a construction of oil refinery in Tuban. It's a joint project between Pertamina and one of our biggest oil company, Rosneft. Yeah. Also, we have another big Russian oil company participating in a project to explore the gas fields in Natuna, and probably participate in this extraction of gas there. We have.
When is that going to be? I mean, the plans?
It's in process. They're actually now they're assessing the commercial viability of this project, if there is enough gas for commercial
feasibility studies.
Yeah, feasibility studies. So another actually success story is a Russian IT company that operates online taxi service. Maybe you've seen Taxi Maxim in 60 cities in Indonesia. So yes, it's operated by Russian
online.
It's an online taxi service.
Okay.
Yeah. So and there are a lot of other areas that we can explore. And first of all, energy, of course.
Right.
And I mean not only conventional, but green, like for instance hydro energy. You know, in Russia we have so many hydro plants, facilities in different parts of our country, because we have a lot of rivers, especially in Siberia, huge rivers, and there's a lot of hydroenergetic dams, facilities that provide electricity to this region of Russia, so we can share this experience. And of course, nuclear energy. You know, people shouldn't be afraid of the world nuclear, because in a sense it's a green technology. In Russia, though, as you know, we're really rich in oil and gas and coal, and we have these plants. But 20% of our electricity is generated by nuclear facilities, and the public opinion is not against it. Of course, you know, the whole world knows about Chernobyl disaster and Fukushima. But Chernobyl happened 30 years ago. And since then, the technology, we improved a lot, our technology. For instance, the modern nuclear facilities that we use now have 5 times higher level of security than Chernobyl used to have. And Fukushima is an old American project also. So we are ready to provide these technologies to Indonesia when or if your government will be ready to consider the usage of nuclear energy. Actually, we have joint projects with many foreign countries in this area, including Iran, Bangladesh, Turkey, and many others. So
any other ASEAN countries at the moment? At
the moment, no. There was a project with Vietnam, but after Fukushima, immediately they cancelled, not because they were not sure about Russian technologies, but because the public opinion, you know, got scared about what happened in Fukushima, actually. But Asian countries, other Asian countries do, Uzbekistan, for instance, as well. Of course, what we can do together also is civil aviation construct. We are now, we have designed and we are starting to produce some middle-range aircrafts. So that could be also a consideration to have some joint production of this kind of aircrafts that would be very useful for Indonesia, I think. The communication between the islands.
It's too big, so many islands.
Yes, so of course that is a very promising area. Shipbuilding. By the way, we also have the technology for floating nuclear plant. Also that could be, and we are the first country in the world that produced it. It's already there. It's not just a design. We have it, and it is already used in Russia. It's a big ship, and there is a nuclear plant on it, a small reactor, and you can dock it wherever you want. You know, if there is a threat of tsunami or earthquake, you can just ship it to another place, to a safer place. So, and it's enough to produce electricity for a small city.
Right.
So that also is a very promising area of cooperation. We have cooperation in education. We provide scholarships for Indonesian
How many
students.
Indonesian students?
Around 700 right
at
now.
the moment.
At the moment, but there will be more because we increased the number of scholarships by 100. It used to be 161, and it is 261. And there is a big demand. I can tell you, this year we received more than 1,000 requests.
Wow, getting popular.
Yes, because the quality of education is high. And additional bonus is learning Russian language.
Correct. Yeah.
Of course, it's not enough. You know, we have like 3,000 students from Malaysia right now, or we have 1,000 students from Vietnam. So we need to, you know,
there is room for improvement.
There is room for improvement. Absolutely, especially as there is big demand. Of course, tourism. But it was stopped by the COVID. Before COVID, we had 160,000 Russians per year in Bali. And I can tell you, Bali is so popular in Russia. You ask an average Russian, Indonesia, what do you know about Indonesia?
Bali.
Bali. Well, of course, some people think that Bali is just a different country, but but no. But most people know, of course, the quality of education is good in Russia, so we know the geography. But people just love Bali. And
they want to escape from the winter.
Of course. Russia is a cold country, so of course Bali with its beautiful beaches, the sunshine, wonderful culture, traditions. Because you know, Russians are not only just they come for the beaches or the sea, which they do, of course, but also they want to explore the culture, the traditions, to get to know something new.
Yeah. How about the people-to-people contact between these two countries?
Oh yes, you know, as soon as there are a lot of tourists, they are people-to-people contacts, of course, because people get to know more about the country. They want to, you know, to explore the country. I would also like to mention that your embassy in Moscow, Indonesian embassy in Moscow before COVID, they organized wonderful cultural festival, Indonesia Cultural Festival in Moscow 4 times. I was there at every event, and it attracted a lot of attention. The last one had more than 150,000 visitors. Though I was there despite the very cold weather, actually, but it was exceptional. It was in August. Usually it's very warm in Moscow. But at that particular, it was 2018, no, 2019, it was 12 degrees, which is cold and usually cold, yeah. So, of course, but Indonesian participants were very brave. It was an open air, in a park in the middle of Moscow, and there were dancers from Jakarta with the attire that actually did not very well match this weather, but the performance was great, and people just flocked in despite the cold weather, despite the rain. I really hope that this can be continued when the situation well, actually it allows now in Moscow.
Yeah. Excellency, in relation to that, like I said earlier, that some of or many Russian diplomats whom I met before, they speak Indonesia, they speak Bahasa Indonesia fluently. So my question is that, is it required for the Russian diplomat to learn Bahasa during their tour of duty in Indonesia, or?
It is not, and I'm an example of that, because unfortunately I can speak Bahasa. I speak Lao and Thai languages. I spent many years in these countries, and I studied Lao and Thai languages at the university.
Awesome.
But we have in Russia a very good tradition and a very good school of studying languages. So under the umbrella of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have a university, which is called the University of International Relations. It's very famous in Russia.
Yep.
Our minister is a graduate from this university. Myself, I'm a graduate from this university.
Awesome.
In this university, you can study 40 languages, including Bahasa Indonesia. But not only in Moscow, also in St. Petersburg, in Vladivostok, in some other cities, you can study Bahasa Indonesia.
Awesome.
So, though it's...
And the instructors are Russians or Indonesian?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both, yeah.
Wow.
Mostly Russian, actually.
Wow.
And though it's not a requirement, but still we prefer to recruit diplomats who know local language to this or that embassy. For instance, I studied Lao language at this university, so I had 3 postings in Laos, beginning from attaché to the deputy head of mission. I spent 10 years working there at the embassy.
In Vientiane,
I got married there.
Oh wow, awesome.
To a Russian.
In Luang Prabang or Vientiane?
Vientiane,
yeah.
Our embassy is Vientiane.
Yeah.
So this is a tradition of our foreign service. For instance, our ambassador to Japan, who was my predecessor here. He speaks Japanese.
Oh.
He's now in Japan. Or our ambassador in China. He's a Chinese speaker.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome.
In our embassy now we have around 10 diplomats who can speak Bahasa.
Awesome. It'll be easier to communicate with the Indonesian people, yeah? Okay. So is there any progress after the sixth meeting of the bilateral consultation in December, perhaps in the areas of political law and security?
Actually, one of the very good results of these consultations was the signing of a bilateral agreement on international information security. And now we're working on a roadmap how to implement this very important agreement. And many issues have been discussed during this consultations, and we are following up what has been agreed on.
Okay. Excellency, moving on to another topic, Indonesia serves as the chair of G20 this year. And recently, President Joko Widodo made a statement that there is a need for developed countries, including those in G20, to help developing countries in transition in energy and by providing financial support. So I would like to know, how would your country, as one of the G20 members, respond to this call?
First of all, I would like to say that we support the priorities that have been identified by the Indonesian presidency in G20, and these are, first of all, the global economical recovery after the COVID-19, the strengthening of the healthcare system, of course the energy transition, and the digital transformation.
Yes.
And what we think is very important, that Indonesia represents the opinion of the developing countries that should be heard and should be considered by the developed countries. Of course, all the countries need to participate in solving the global issues. Of course, those countries that have more possibility to do so should, of course, help other countries also to be included in this process. So we think that this process should be inclusive, not leaving out anyone.
Right, agree. Yeah. Okay, a follow-up question. It is quite challenging for Indonesia at this time to chair the G20 this year, as the world is trying, like you said, to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And besides, Moscow's presence at the event may trigger boycott by other countries. So although some countries said we're not in the position to respond to the participation of each member of G20. Yeah. So do you have anything to say on this issue?
First of all, I would like to say that we appreciate the very balanced position of the Indonesian government that absolutely rightly states that the discussions in the G20 should be focused on the global economic and financial issues that are very important for the whole world, and that political issues that could divide and divert the attention of the G20 members to political crises that are not relevant to the agenda, it shouldn't be done.
Right. No mechanism to punish other than economy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what added value will it make?
Understand. Yeah.
So the other thing is that these Western policies to isolate Russia and to exclude Russia from not only from G20 but from many other international fora is absolutely illogical. First of all, Russia is an important global player. How can you discuss energy issues without Russia?
Correct.
it will not, you know, help to solve any problem actually. On the other hand, it's a policy that is, I would say, cowardly, because okay, you try. It's like, you know, it's like an ostrich, you know, the bird. When it's frightened, it's just buries the head in the sand, and it pretends that it doesn't see anything. And so the Western policy is, okay, we pretend that Russia does not exist, but it will not make Russia vanish. And how will it make help to solve the crisis? Not in any way. So for us, this, you know, policies are, they are, I would say, illogical. The reaction is unproportional, and also, you know, the statements made by some of the Western leaders are also, to put it mildly, very surprising. Like when the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, stated that he will not sit at the same table with the leader of the country that invaded other countries, or Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada also, he said the same thing. Does he mean Biden? So you see, it's this double standards and political games that are not helping to improve the situation. On the contrary, they're making things worse. So if some of the leaders boycott, I hope it will not happen, of course. Well, it's their business, you know. Still, the G20 will be relevant, because most of the G20 members, they want to participate, and they are not against Russia participating in this forum.
And President Putin will be coming.
The invitation has been issued, and the response was made that President Putin intends to attend the G20 summit.
Okay. And you've been asked many times by the media about the Russia-Ukraine situation. And we know that not too long ago, US President Biden made a statement that Russia is committing genocide in Ukraine. So perhaps you have some important things to explain what the world should know about Russia and Ukraine situation, you know, as the conflict has been going on for more than 50 days as of today.
Yeah. First of all, we're not having a war against Ukrainian people, because Ukrainians and Russians are the same. Ukrainians are our brothers and sisters. We all have relatives and friends in Ukraine. Ukrainians have relatives and friends in Russia. I always say I was born in Ukraine. I'm not Ukrainian, I'm Russian, but I was born there. My father grew up in Ukraine. So Ukraine is not some, you know, foreign country for Russians. And we are trying to, first of all, to stop the war that has been going on for 8 years. And the Western media, they was paying no attention to that. There was a genocide of Russian people in Donetsk and Lugansk. Ukraine has a large Russian population. More than 50% of Ukrainians are ethnic Russians. All Ukrainians can speak Russian. And, but there are some regions that are predominantly Russian, like Lugansk, Donetsk, and Crimea. So in 2014, there was a coup d'etat in Kiev, a change of regime, and a very Russophobic regime came to power. And the coup d'etat was staged by the West, actually, and very much supported. And Kiev started to have a very anti-Russian policies, which Lugansk and Donetsk and Crimea did not agree with, because they are Russians. How can they be forbidden to speak Russian, to have their own culture, which is actually very close to Ukrainian? It's a very similar. So it's we have the same religion. So this anti-Russian policy, they had a reaction in these regions, and instead of trying to solve this problem in a peaceful way, as Moscow was trying to do it, Kiev chose the military option, and they started a civil war against their own population. For 8 years. 8 years, they were killing people in Lugansk and Donetsk every day. 14,000 people died there. And no one in the West objected. Nothing. Crimea also objected, and Crimea voted for going back to Russia, because historically Crimea was always a Russian region. And we protected the people of Crimea. But Lugansk and Donetsk, at that time we couldn't, and they became victims of the attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces for 8 years. Civilian infrastructure bombed, children and women killed. They never showed in the Western media that, for instance, in Donetsk, the capital of Donetsk Republic, there is a memorial called the Alley of Angels. There are children buried there, more than 150 children buried there. Or for Russians, the symbol of this aggression of Kiev against Lugansk and Donetsk is a photo, also never shown in the Western media. We call her the Madonna of Golovka, a young girl lying in a blood of pool with her baby. And also she was killed by the Ukrainian armed forces. No reaction in the West. At the contrary, they were pushing Ukraine in this conflict. They were trying to make an anti-Russian project from Ukraine. Because of course the West, they don't want to fight Russia directly, but they're using Ukraine, and it's a tragedy. You know, Ukraine, it's not about Ukraine really, this crisis. It's Ukrainians, and it hurts us also, of course. Ukrainians are used as an instrument against Russia. And if you ask me why the West wants to confront Russia, also the answer is very simple, because we don't agree with the right of the West to dominate the world. We don't agree that just a small group of countries have the right to tell the whole world what to do and how to live. You know, our society is quite traditional, like many societies in the world. And when we're told that, you know, we should promote LGBT agenda, for instance, we don't agree. Okay, we're not homophobic. Whatever you do in your house, that's your own business. But why do you have to promote it so aggressively? Or we don't agree that human rights issues are used as a weapon, as a political weapon, as a just pretext to interfere in the domestic affairs of other countries. Of course, human rights are important. Yeah. But every country has its own culture, tradition that should be considered. There is no one golden standard, as some say, of democracy or human rights in the world. Because this is very dangerous. And what we've seen, when you proclaim yourself as a golden standard of democracy, then you make all the countries follow this standard, whether they like it or not, and many times by armed means, by means of armed conflict. Look what happened in Yugoslavia. Yeah. They bombed the country for more than 2 months. Look what happened in Libya. Yeah. The country destroyed. Of course, Gaddafi was not the most democratic of leaders, but under Gaddafi, Libya prospered. People were not dying. But now the country is destroyed. There's civil war going on. Okay, Iraq. under the false pretense of Iraq having the weapons of mass destruction. You remember when they produced this white powder,
Yeah.
but there was no proof actually that this was any weapon of mass destruction. Also, there are different estimates from 600,000 to 1 million civilians killed in Iraq. But nothing similar as what we see now, the sanctions, the hysterical reaction happened. Where are the sanctions? Where? You know, I'm not telling that the military option is the best one, of course not. But I'm trying to say that we were left no other option because our security of our country was threatened, and also people in Lugansk and Donetsk were dying every day, and we tried to solve the situation for 8 years. The Minsk agreements, we were the one who initiated the Minsk agreements that should have solved this problem inside Ukraine, but Kiev didn't listen. So, of course, Ukraine becoming member of NATO was unacceptable for us as well. And
may I ask
yeah,
why?
of course. Why? Very simple. You know, also, if you want to understand the core reasons of this conflict, you should look back into history.
Yeah.
You know that in 1989, when Gorbachev, everyone knows Gorbachev, was the
famous,
president, Gorbachev agreed that Germany, that at that time was separated in two states as a result of World War II, as the result of capitulation of Germany in World War II and the victory of the Soviet Union and Russia. So it was it was separated in two countries, and in the eastern part of Germany we had our troops according to international agreements, and Gorbachev agreed to remove our troops from eastern Germany and for Germany to reunite. We agreed to reunification of Germany, which happened. In response, leaders of NATO promised not to expand NATO to our borders. Gorbachev asked for a written agreement, but President Bush said, no, you just believe our word. After 1999, there was 5 rounds of expansion of NATO towards the borders of Russia. And of course we felt threatened by it because NATO is in no way a dove of peace. It's an aggressive military alliance that attacked Iraq, attacked Libya, attacked Yugoslavia and other countries as well. So if you look at the map, Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe after Russia. It's bigger than France. Yeah. And we have a 2,000 kilometers border with Ukraine. So imagine NATO bringing its infrastructure to the border of Russia. That will mean that, say, if they fire a missile from the border of Russia and Ukraine, 2 minutes it will reach Moscow. So impossible. And Ukraine is a big country. There could have been a lot of NATO infrastructure there. Actually, they were providing, and they still are providing arms and training Ukrainian army. But to officially to have all this military infrastructure in Ukraine for Russia is absolutely unacceptable. We told it many times to NATO leaders. We proposed to have an agreement with them, to sign an agreement on security guarantees for Russia. They ignored our concerns. So one of the targets, besides protecting the people of Lugansk and Donetsk, is to demilitarize Ukraine. We don't want to be threatened from the territory of Ukraine.
So, well, are there any discussions between these two countries? I'm sure there's closed door and publicly, but you know, is there any ongoing talks?
Yes, we had several rounds of talks with the Ukrainians, and there was some hope in the last one in Istanbul that probably we can reach an agreement. But what now we are seeing actually that Kiev shows no intention to sign any agreement, and they are very much instigated by the Western countries. Like the recent statements by some of the leaders that the victory should be reached by military means, that they will supply more and more arms to Ukraine. So basically the West is fueling this conflict. They are not urging Ukraine, you know, to sit at the table and reach an agreement with Russia. No, they are actually instigating Ukraine to respond more and more. And of course it's against the interest of Ukrainian people. But frankly speaking, the Ukrainian government is not independent, of course. President Zelensky is a puppet in the hand of Washington and Brussels. He just follows the orders given from these centers of powers, and it hurts Ukrainians. You know, we are trying to spare the civilian population. We're not targeting civilians. Whatever fakes you can see, believe me, majority are not true. We are trying to save the lives of Ukrainians, simple Ukrainians. That's why we open humanitarian passages for people to be able to leave the zone of conflict. We distribute humanitarian assistance. Wherever our troops are, they bring food, they bring water to the people. And you can see, you know, we see it in our media that many people are glad to see Russians. Because they were, especially Russian speakers, of course, they were very much oppressed by the regime in Kiev. And unfortunately, another thing, there's an information war going on against Russia. Not only from Ukrainian side, but mostly, of course, from the Western side. So there's all the fakes that are being produced. It's just something terrible.
Excellency, we go back to the G20 issues again. And actually, this is going to be my last question. So basically, what do you hope to see in Indonesia's G20 presidency this year?
First of all, we hope that all G20 members will participate actively in the activities. Of course, it's not only the summit itself. Many meetings have been planned, and the Russian delegations have been participating offline and online. Of course, we hope that President Putin can come to the Bali summit, and as I said, we hope that the government of Indonesia will be consistent in its balanced policies and position, that G20 is not the place to discuss political crisis. It's the forum that is focused on global economic and financial agenda, and as we support the priorities of Indonesian presidency, of course we hope that the target set by Indonesia will be reached.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, we're very appreciative to the government of Indonesia and the people of Indonesia, because what we can see here, there is no animosity or any hatred against Russians or Russia, and we feel that Indonesian people remember and cherish this very good friendship and traditions that we have in our bilateral relations.
All right. Once again, Your Excellency, thank you for coming and thank you for giving us the interview amid your busy schedule. And like you said, we hope that the G20 meeting will be successful under Indonesia's presidency. Okay, and you have a great one and take care.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you.
My pleasure.